Starting off Week 10 with a divisional matchup between the Las Vegas Raiders and the Denver Broncos. The Raiders dominated this matchup for the first half of this decade, winning 8 in a row, but the Broncos seem to have turned the tide, sweeping the Raiders last season. Can Denver keep the streak rolling, or will Vegas claw its way out of the AFC West basement? We'll see in the simulation, but first, let's get behind our bar and make our drink, the Cold Fusion. All right, we're here in Week 10, Raiders versus Broncos, little AFC West, action on this Thursday night. Vegas is actually going to be right back here next week for another primetime game. But for the Broncos, this is their last primetime appearance on this show this season. Technically, the Broncos do have 2 more primetime games, but those are in the Thanksgiving and Christmas weeks, which have, I think, 6 and 5 primetime games respectively. I'll probably put out a community post about this when it gets closer, but I'm only going to be doing 1 game for each of those weeks. So sadly, Broncos are going to miss out, but we're going to send them off with their representative this week, a nice cold Coors Light. Basic? Sure, but there's no denying that this is probably the drink most Americans associate with Denver. After all, the tagline is cold as the Rockies, and it's a key part of their marketing strategy. You get this can down to 39 degrees or colder, bam, mountains turn blue. As for the beer itself, I feel like I don't really need to explain this, but I'll do it anyways. If this is somehow your first time finding out about one of the biggest beer brands on the planet, this is an American Pilsner-style light lager, clocking in at 4.2% ABV and 100 calories. Not a whole lot to say flavor-wise, honestly. You taste things more strongly when they're warmer, and there's a whole reason the entire marketing strategy around this beer is about how cold you can get it. This beer is designed to be easy drinking, and it sure is, just a smooth, light-bodied brewski. Pretty much the exact opposite of Vegas's explosive representative, the Atomic. Now, the exact creator of the Atomic cocktail has been lost to history, but this is a Las Vegas drink through and through. Dating back to the beginning of the Atomic Age in the 1950s, this drink was heavily marketed by the Las Vegas Chamber of Commerce and a couple of casinos in the city. Indeed, the drink gets its name from the various atomic bomb tests that the US Army was running just outside of Las Vegas at the time, which some of these casinos would have fucking watch parties for. God, the 50s were a wild time. As for the drink itself, it's a relatively simple champagne cocktail consisting of vodka, cognac, about a bar spoon of sherry, and then of course topped off with champagne. Now, technically, that's just the main Atomic recipe that survived to our current day. There are quite likely other drinks also called the Atomic with different recipes, as pretty much every casino in the city tried to cash in on this trend. Well, we've got a champagne cocktail and a beer as our 2 representatives, so if you ask me, this mashup kind of makes itself. We're going to take the Atomic and we're going to cool it all the way down until we achieve cold fusion. So final spec is going to be 1 ounce of our vodka. This is going to be a very strong drink, as you may have noticed. There is not a single non-alcoholic ingredient in this drink. One ounce of cognac. Getting near the end of this bottle. Maybe I should have bought a bigger bottle of cognac. A 1/4 ounce of our sherry. Original recipe called for a bar spoon. I decided to up that to a 1/4 ounce. That is a very heavy 1/4 ounce, so that'll be interesting. We're pouring fast and loose today. All right, and then we're gonna shake those 3 up. Okay, now I actually should have stirred this instead of shaking it. I didn't read my notes correctly. Since we don't have anything that basically needs to be shaken up like that, stirring would have given us a little bit less dilution, but I'm sure it'll be fine. We're pouring Coors Light on it anyways. So we're gonna strain that sort of bottom mixture into our coupe glass. And we're gonna crack open this bad boy and top the drink off with about 2 ounces, 2 to 3, somewhere in there, just to give it a little bit of bubbles. There we go. Oh yeah, this looks like straight piss right there. All right, well, this is our cold fusion. Let's give it a try. Ooh. Okay. The cognac and the sherry, that's an interesting combination. I am actually glad, I'm glad that A, I bumped it up from a 1/4 ounce to a 1/2 ounce. Or sorry, that I bumped it up from a bar spoon to a 1/4 ounce. And I'm also glad that I heavy poured it and it came closer to a 1/2 ounce. That's an interesting... It's a very strange combination of flavors. It's not bad. I was I was really wondering, man, what is that Coors Light going to do, right? Because everybody knows it's not a particularly strong tasting beer. But I was really worried that this sort of, the mixture of our atomic, something in there was going to catch an off note in the Coors Light, and it was just going to magnify it and blow up this entire drink, if you'll pardon the pun. But I think we've got a stable little reaction going on here. I mean, it is a strong drink. I think, the ABV of the drink probably isn't too bad, just because the Coors Light is so low. But it is there's a lot of alcohol in this drink. The video I'm shooting right after this is going to be interesting, because, yeah, this drink's going to hit me pretty hard. Flavor note, though, it's funny, they almost kind of pair up. The Coors Light and the vodka actually pull some similar notes out of each other. Those sort of barley notes, that almost malted kind of flavor. And then the cognac and the sherry, they're both grape-based, and sort of they pull similar notes out of each other. And that dance between the sort of barley notes and the grape notes is very interesting. And then the finish, so this is an Amontillado sherry. It's quite dry. It's not sweet. If you're used to thinking of sherries as very sweet dessert wines, that is not what this style is like. This style is much more on the dry side. Really, the main flavors are lemon and nuts, actually. It's a very nutty drink. And so that's really the long finish on this drink is coming from that Amontillado. And it really is this sort of pleasant nuttiness that, again, works quite well with the sort of, malted notes from the beer. It's a very interesting drink. Yeah, and the cognac, I think, honestly, what I might do, what I might recommend is to tamp down the vodka a little bit, maybe go to 1/2 ounce of it, and then increase the cognac to 1.5 ounces, because I think I think you want that sort of grape pit flavor from the cognac to really be the sort of main flavor note from it. And by adding in a whole ounce of vodka, right, we're basically adding in nothingness to this drink. We're adding in a blank space in the flavor profile. And I think shifting some of that away, I don't think you'd want to go with a full 2-ounce pour of the cognac, because I think at that point you're starting to wash out some of these other notes. But I think upping it to 1.5 ounces could really sort of make it take the center stage that it deserves. And then you can have the rest of these sort of, barley and nutty and almost lemony. You get some lemon and almost saline, salt in a very strange way from the Amontillado. You can have those as sort of the supporting cast, as opposed to right now where the cognac is also a supporting flavor note. And so everything just kind of feels a little bit weak, honestly. The flavor profile of this drink doesn't feel like it's living up to how punchy this drink overall is. It's this is a very strong drink, from an alcohol perspective, but it doesn't read as a strong drink from a flavor perspective. And so you've got a bit of sort of dissonance on the profile there. But yeah, overall, a very interesting drink, I think this has certainly elevated the Coors Light, obviously. But yeah, I'm very glad that this drink didn't sort of blow up in my face. I thought for sure that this drink was gonna catch some odd note off the Coors Light, and it was just gonna be disgusting. Certainly the look of the drink, didn't assuage any of my fears. But yeah, and I think the fact that I shook it instead of stirred it, James Bond might kill me over that, but I don't think it made too much of a difference in this drink. Well, a surprisingly high-quality drink. Maybe we can get a surprisingly competitive matchup in this game as well, but we'll find out in the simulation. The Broncos start with the ball and start off strong on offense, converting 3 third downs on their opening drive. They make it all the way to the red zone, where this screen to J.K. Dobbins comes up just short of the goal line. They convert on the very next play, though, with rookie R.J. Harvey diving in for the opening score. The Raiders go 3 and out, and the Broncos are right back in the red zone, this time capping their drive off with a play-action dart to Courtland Sutton for the 7-yard TD. However, the Raiders' second drive fares far better than the first, as Ashton Jeanty bounces this run outside and takes it in 10 yards to put Vegas on the board. After barely missing out in the first quarter, Dobbins gets his touchdown at the end of the second quarter, punching it in from the 2-yard line. Raiders' defense is nowhere to be seen, but the offense keeps their momentum going, putting together a strong 2-minute drill, which almost runs out of time in the red zone, but Ashton Jeanty gets out of bounds with 2 seconds left, giving them enough time to hit the chip shot field goal, making this game 21-10 at the half. The second half is the same as the first for Ashton Jeanty, who adds on another 10-yard rushing TD on the Raiders' opening drive. Vegas goes for 2, trying to make this a 3-point game, but this time Denver is ready and stuffs Jeanty in the backfield. After Denver's drive stalls, Vegas is right back in the red zone, with Jakobi Meyers taking the jet sweep, giving the Raiders their first lead of the game. The Raiders again try the 2-point conversion, this time to extend their lead to 3, but the Broncos again meet Jeanty in the backfield. The Broncos are facing a 4th and 1 with only a minute left in the game, and J.K. Dobbins pinballs his way through to pick up the first, keeping this drive alive. With 26 seconds left, Denver's within field goal range, but Nix wants it all, heaving up a deep ball to Marvin Mims and rewarding all the Bo-lievers with a game-winning 34-yard touchdown. Their offense stays on the field, looking to extend their recaptured lead to a clean 7 points, and a quick pass to Mims gets it done. With only 2 timeouts and 20 seconds left, the Raiders get to within Hail Mary range and heave up one final prayer, but they lack the faith of the Bo-lievers, and it falls incomplete. Denver wins in dramatic fashion, 29-22. Well, it's fun to see that even Madden is aware that the Broncos go crazy in the fourth quarter, but honestly, I think this game in reality is going to be more like the Cowboys game, with Denver just getting ahead early and cruising with that lead. But then again, divisional matchups are always unpredictable, and this year has been especially weird, so who knows. A very clean game for Bo Nix, around 260 yards and 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. A slightly above average performance relative to this season, and while that 74% completion percentage is high in reality, it's actually pretty low by Madden standards. Geno Smith had 100 fewer passing yards and only 1 touchdown, but he didn't turn the ball over at all, which is a step in the right direction considering he's got 10 interceptions so far this season as of writing this script. Respectable performances for both of these running backs, 50-ish yards apiece, 1 touchdown for Dobbins and 2 for Jeanty. Of course, R.J. Harvey sniped one of Dobbins' touchdowns, resulting in the incredible stat line of 1 rush for 0 yards and 1 touchdown. And then there's the quarterbacks. 57 yards is definitely on the higher end for Nix, but well within precedent. He had 2 games last year with over 60 rushing yards. As for Geno Smith, just what the fuck, Madden? Geno's all-time high was 72 yards, and he hasn't even broken 100 rushing yards on the season through his first 7 games. As for the receivers, Courtland Sutton and Marvin Mims leading the Broncos in receiving yards makes sense. J.K. Dobbins having 9 receptions absolutely does not. He hasn't had a single game with more than 2 receptions so far this season. This is another Madden pattern that I haven't spoken about as much, but the AI really loves checkdowns and screens, which often really inflates receptions for running backs. Now, this sim does assume that Jakobi Meyers is still on the Raiders, which certainly helped them as he was their leading receiver. Honestly though, besides the running back thing, the bottom of the stat sheet looks pretty reasonable for the receivers. It also helps show that the running back pattern isn't uniform across all teams, as Genty only had 2 catches for 19 yards, which is far more in line with his real-world performances. Now, Monte Carlo sim Geno Smith is actually pretty much identical to his Madden counterpart through the air, averaging just over 160 passing yards and 1 touchdown. Of course, the ground is a different matter entirely, as the Monte Carlo sim has him at a far more reasonable 21 rushing yards. As for Bo Nix, he drops down below 200 passing yards, but is still solidly ahead of Geno. The running backs are completely scrambled up though. Ashton Genty has nearly double his Madden rushing yards, while RJ Harvey supplants J.K. Dobbins as the lead back in Denver, putting up 57 yards to Dobbins' 36. Also, funnily enough, the tight ends lead both of these teams in receiving yards, with 42 for Evan Ingram and 54 for Brock Bowers. Finally, a very normal distribution of scores, with the most probable outcome being the standard 14-14 tie. Interestingly though, the sim really seems to believe that Ashton Genty's rushing performance can carry the Raiders to victory, as the average of all 10,000 games tilts slightly in favor of Las Vegas, with a 19-18 final score. Do you agree with the simulations, or do you envision a different future? I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts down in the comments. As a reminder, our drink for this matchup is the barley and grape dominated Cold Fusion. If you make it, please let me know what you think, and I'd love to hear your suggestions for what drink should be your team's representative. Stay curious, stay thirsty, and I'll see you in the next one.